You're standing in line at a coffee shop. You don't really need the coffee. You have coffee at home. But it's been a long morning and you're tired and the line is short and it's only $7. So you order it. And while you're waiting, you notice a pastry that looks good. It's $4. Sure, why not? You tap your card. $11 total. No big deal. And it isn't a big deal. $11 is not going to make or break your financial future. Except, and this is the part that might change how you think about money forever, that $11 isn't the cost. The $11 is the first domino. And the chain of dominoes it just knocked over will cost you somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 over the next 20 years. Not because of the coffee, because of what the coffee decision did to every decision that came after it. I know that sounds dramatic. I know that sounds like I'm being one of those stop buying lattes people. I'm not. I don't care about your latte. I care about the invisible chain reaction that a single small purchase triggers in your brain. A chain reaction that the financial world completely ignores, and that is silently responsible for more lost wealth than any bad investment, market crash, or economic downturn. And once you see how the chain works, you'll never look at a $10 decision the same way again. My name is Max, and I want to help you learn how to make your money work more for you in your life. This channel is about understanding the hidden mechanics behind your financial decisions. Not the obvious ones, but the invisible chain reactions that determine where you end up in 10, 20, 30 years. If that interests you, subscribe, because we uncover these patterns every week. So here's what most people believe about small purchases. It's just $10. It doesn't matter. And in isolation, they're right. A single $10 purchase has virtually zero impact on your long-term wealth. The math doesn't support worrying about it. But here's what isolation gets wrong. Financial decisions don't happen in isolation. Every decision creates a context for the next decision, and context is everything. The $10 coffee isn't a standalone event. It's the first domino in a sequence that behavioral scientists call a decision cascade. A chain of escalating decisions where each one makes the next one more likely and more expensive. And the cascade mechanism is far more destructive than the repetition mechanism that the latte factor crowd obsesses over. It's not that you buy coffee every day, it's that buying the coffee today makes you more likely to buy lunch out, which makes you more likely to skip cooking dinner, which makes you more likely to upgrade your food budget, which makes you more likely to justify other lifestyle upgrades, which creates a permanent baseline of spending that is $200 to $400 per month, higher than it needed to be. The $10 didn't cost $10, it cost the entire cascade. Let me explain this with an analogy that makes the chain visible. Imagine a hill covered in fresh snow. At the top, you make a small snowball, the size of your fist. You give it a push. It rolls down the hill, picking up snow as it goes. By the time it reaches the bottom, it's the size of a car. The snowball at the bottom bears no resemblance to the one you started with, but it's made entirely of snow that accumulated because of that first push. Your $10 decision is the first push, and the hill is your brain's tendency to use recent decisions as permission for future ones. Each decision adds snow, more spending, bigger commitments, higher baselines, until the snowball at the bottom is $30,000 to $50,000 of wealth that was never built. But here's where it gets really interesting. The psychology behind the cascade is a concept called moral licensing, the tendency to allow yourself to make a bad decision after making a good one, or to escalate a pattern after establishing it with a small first step. Research from Northwestern University found that people who made a single indulgent purchase were significantly more likely to make additional indulgent purchases in the same day. Not because they wanted them more, but because the first purchase gave their brain permission. Here's how the cascade actually unfolds in practice. And I want to walk you through the full chain, because seeing the complete sequence is what makes this concept click. Step 1. You buy the $7 coffee and $4 pastry. Total, $11. Your brain registers this as, I'm someone who buys treats when I've had a tough morning. No alarm bells. Reasonable. Step 2. Later that day, you're deciding about lunch. You packed something, but it's not appealing. And since you already broke the spend on food seal this morning, the mental barrier to eating out is lower. You order a $16 salad. You wouldn't have ordered it if you hadn't bought the coffee. But the coffee gave you permission. Day's food spending. $27 instead of $4 for a homemade lunch. That's a $23 overshoot. And step 3. After a week of this pattern repeating 2 or 3 times, your brain normalizes eating out as a semi-regular occurrence. Your weekly food overshoot settles at about $40 to $60. You stop packing lunch some days because I'm going to end up eating out anyway. The behavior has shifted from occasional to habitual. Step 4. The food habit creates a broader spending identity shift. You're now someone who treats themselves. And that identity doesn't stay in the food lane, it migrates. You start justifying other upgrades, a better streaming package, a nicer gym, slightly more expensive clothes. Each one is individually small, but the cascade has spread from one $11 decision to a monthly lifestyle inflation of $200 to $400. Step 5. The inflated baseline becomes invisible. You can't see it because it happened gradually and across categories. It doesn't show up as a single line item in your budget. It's $40 more on food, $30 more on subscriptions, $50 more on convenience, $80 more on dining out, $60 more on miscellaneous. None of these trigger alarm bells individually, but collectively, they represent $260 per month that wouldn't exist if the first domino hadn't fallen. $260 per month. Invested at 8% for 20 years. That's approximately $153,000 for 30 years. $389,000. The $11 coffee didn't cost $11. The cascade it triggered costs somewhere between $153,000 and $389,000 over a lifetime. And most people can't even identify where the money went because the cascade distributed the spending across so many categories that no single one looks excessive. Now, I know you may not believe this. It sounds extreme. A cup of coffee leading to $150,000 in lost wealth. But let me show you the math from the other direction, because it's even more convincing. Track every dollar you spend for 1 month. Actually track it. Not estimate, track. The average person who does this for the first time discovers between $250 and $500 per month in spending they didn't realize they were doing. Not rent, not insurance, not obvious expenses. Invisible cascade spending. The accumulated drift from dozens of small decisions, each one permissioned by the one before it. And here's where the research gets specific. A study published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that making a single unplanned purchase at the start of a shopping trip increased total spending over the remainder of the trip by an average of 36%. 36% more spending triggered by one unplanned decision. Scale that to an entire month of daily decisions, and the cascade multiplier is enormous. And this is the part most people miss. The cascade doesn't just cost you the money, it costs you the identity. Every cascading decision reinforces a spending identity. I'm someone who treats myself, who enjoys nice things, who doesn't deprive myself. And that identity, once established, actively resists any attempt to change spending behavior, because changing your spending now means changing who you believe you are, and identity change is the hardest form of change there is. The person who never started the cascade has a different identity entirely. They see themselves as someone who makes intentional choices, and that identity, the intentional chooser, produces completely different financial outcomes, not because they're more disciplined, because their default setting is different. Their first domino was deliberation, not indulgence. And the cascade that follows deliberation looks completely different from the one that follows impulse. The deliberation cascade works like this. You pause at the coffee shop. You decide to make coffee at home. That decision creates a micro-permission for a different behavior. I'm someone who chooses the homemade option. Later that day, when the lunch question comes up, the packed lunch feels natural because the morning decision established a choosing intentionally pattern. By the end of the week, you've saved $40 to $60 without a single moment of deprivation, because each intentional choice made the next one easier. The cascade ran the other direction, toward accumulation instead of spending, toward building instead of drifting. That's the beautiful thing about cascades. They work in both directions. The same mechanism that drains $50,000 over 20 years can build $50,000 over 20 years. The only variable is which domino falls first. Here's what this looks like in practice. Two people earn the same salary. Person A makes the $11 coffee decision and triggers the cascade. Their monthly lifestyle inflation settles at $260 per month. Person B pauses at the coffee shop, decides to make coffee at home, and invests the $260 monthly difference. 5 years later, Person A has spent approximately $15,600 on cascade spending and has no additional investments. Person B has $19,200 invested. The gap, $34,800. 10 years later, Person A has spent $31,200 on invisible lifestyle drift. Person B has $47,800 invested. The gap, $79,000. 20 years later, Person A has spent $62,400 on cascade spending. Person B has $153,000 invested. The gap, $215,400. Same salary, same life, same city, over $200,000 apart. And the divergence started with an $11 decision at a coffee shop. Now, I need to be very clear about something. I am not telling you to never buy coffee. That would be absurd, and it would make this another generic stop spending video. What I am telling you is to understand the cascade mechanism so you can make $10 decisions consciously rather than automatically. The fix isn't eliminating small purchases, it's interrupting the cascade. And the interruption point is shockingly simple: awareness. When you make a small, unplanned purchase, your brain opens a spending permission window that lasts roughly 4 to 6 hours. During that window, you're significantly more likely to make additional unplanned purchases. If you know the window is open, if you're consciously aware that I just bought coffee, so my brain is going to suggest lunch out, you can close the window before the cascade starts. The research calls this metacognitive intervention, thinking about your thinking, and studies show that simply being aware of the cascade mechanism reduces its effect by 40 to 60%. You don't need willpower, you need awareness. The cascade operates in your blind spot. Move it into your field of vision, and it loses most of its power. Here are 2 practical tools that interrupt cascades. The first is the cascade check. After any unplanned purchase, you say to yourself, "Cascade window open." Just label the state. That label activates your prefrontal cortex, which overrides the automatic permission system. Research on affect labeling shows that naming a psychological state reduces its influence by up to 50%. You're not fighting the cascade, and you're naming it. And named things lose their power. The second tool is the same-day redirect. After an unplanned purchase, transfer the same amount to your investment account before the day ends. Bought a $15 lunch? Transfer $15. The psychological effect is that your brain associates the spending with an equal investment, which disrupts the permission signal. Over time, this reframing actually reduces unplanned spending because the automatic association between treat and no consequence weakens. The treat now has a mirror image, and mirrors make invisible behavior visible. And the career implications of cascade awareness are worth mentioning because they extend beyond spending. The cascade mechanism doesn't just apply to coffee and lunch. It applies to career decisions too. Accepting a job that's $5,000 below market because you didn't negotiate is a $5,000 first domino. That lower base means lower raises, lower bonuses, lower retirement contributions, and a lower anchor for your next negotiation. The cascade from one under-negotiated salary can cost $100,000 to $200,000 over a career. Same mechanism, same chain reaction, same invisible accumulation. The person who understands cascades negotiates the first salary aggressively because they know the first number cascades through everything that follows. They negotiate the first raise, the first promotion, and the first job change with the same awareness. And the career cascade that follows strong initial negotiations is just as powerful as the spending cascade, except it compounds in your favor. Now, here's the warning about applying this concept incorrectly. Some people learn about cascades and become financially paralyzed. They're afraid to spend anything because what if it starts a cascade? And that's not the point. The point is to make first decisions intentionally rather than automatically. If you consciously decide, I want this coffee, I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm aware that my brain will try to permission additional spending today. That's not a cascade. That's a choice. Cascades are unconscious. Choices are conscious. And conscious spending doesn't trigger the permission window the way unconscious spending does. The goal isn't to never spend $10. It's to never let $10 spend $50,000 for you. So here's what I want you to take from this. The next time you're standing in line, card in hand, about to make a small, unplanned purchase, pause. Not because $10 matters, but because the cascade matters. Ask yourself, am I choosing this, or is this the first domino? If you're choosing it, genuinely, consciously choosing it, go ahead, enjoy it. But if you're reaching for your card automatically, out of habit, out of tiredness, out of it's only $10, that's the domino. And now you know what it costs. The $10 isn't the expense. The cascade is the expense. And the cascade only has power when it's invisible. You just made it visible. Invisible cascades don't snowball. They stop. So the next time the first domino starts to fall, catch it, hold it. Decide consciously whether to let it drop. Because $10 decisions are the steering wheel of your financial life. And now you know which direction each one is pointing. Choose accordingly. The snowball only rolls if you push it,